Hey everyone, Thomas here with ForReel. And as part of my coverage of South by Southwest 22, I'm talking to director and writer of the South by Southwest selected short El Carrito. And I am excited to be talking with her about this film. Zahida, thank you so much for having this conversation with me a second
Yeah, no
time.
problem. No problem, Thomas.
All right. So you're in Austin. I am not. For those who were not able to attend the festival in person, give me a sense of like what it's like being in person and actually at the festival in Austin.
Yeah, it's really awesome because this is the first time South by is back after 2 years of not being in person. And so to come to South by Southwest for the first time with this film has been like seriously a gift because I like, a lot of my colleagues didn't even get to have in-person screenings for their films. And I feel so lucky that, timing just coincided and that South by is already a very prestigious festival. And so just to be accepted into South by is amazing. And then on top of that, what I love and people always talk about this is that South by Southwest is so into creating community, which is, one of the themes I explore coincidentally in my film. And I've already like met so many amazing people, both filmmakers and potential collaborators, and it's just such an amazing place that like what they foster of trying to connect people with each other. So it feels very, very special. I feel so lucky to have El Carito as part of this festival this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't be there in person, but I do just want to give a quick shout out to South by for continuing the hybrid version of their festival, which makes the festival accessible to people even outside of Austin. And so, the big thank you to them for that, and for giving me the opportunity to screen El Carrito, and then of course arrange this conversation. For those who are not familiar with the film yet, give me a little bit of a synopsis on what the film's about.
Yeah, so the film is about a street vendor named Nelly, who lives and works in Queens, New York, and she's basically just trying to make it day to day. She takes care of her elderly father, and one day, and she's very untrusting of the world around her and the people around her. And like one day, she's put in a position where she needs to take a leap of faith and do something that's very hard for her because she's so untrusting. And when she does, it sort of opens up a new perspective on how she relates to people and how she sees the world around her. So, there's something that happens in the movie that's like a big misfortune for her, but it actually opens up this whole new world for her of how she looks at things and people around her.
Absolutely. With you being in person, you've had the chance to screen this on the big screen, both here at South by and when it world premiered at AFI Fest a few months ago, which is so cool that we're getting movies back on the big screen and
Oh,
being able to come
yes.
together as an audience.
Yes. Yes.
Tell me more about the reaction that people have been having towards the film.
Yeah, so I mean, we just had our screening earlier today, this afternoon at South by Southwest. It was our first screening here, and it was wonderful because the room was packed, like it was sold out. And to have such enthusiasm for a shorts program is so amazing. And yeah, I mean, I've had several people approach me that just really love the film, and potential producing partners that want to collaborate with me, and just people who are very interested in the film. And it's just so what we need. And I think after the pandemic there's this question of like going online and being in person for festivals. And I think for shorts both is really good, because we as filmmakers like to have an audience like experience the emotion of the film that you've created is priceless. Like for us to sit there and hear when the audience laughs or cries or sighs, it's huge for us because we're getting feedback on our films, but also it's just inspiring. I want to keep making films because I want people to feel something. And to know that it's being well received is really special. I feel that moving forward, I think hybrid is great because people who can't come to, you know, a festival in, say, Austin in this case, can at least watch it from home for a limited period. And I think that's really nice because it can open up the audience for shorts. But it was just so nice and so fantastic today to get like a full audience for the film. I mean, I'm so grateful that we had this and that we are back. Like we're back to being in theaters again and showing our work and having exchanges with filmmakers. It's so important to our creative process. So I'm so grateful for it.
Absolutely, and I'm happy for you to being able to screen this in person and with the energy that exists at South by Southwest. Yeah, it just sounds like a really wonderful opportunity for the film and for you as a filmmaker as well. You had mentioned community being such a big component of the themes in the film. Tell me more about what community meant for you and this film that you made.
Yeah, so my background is actually in community organizing. So I have been working as a community organizer for a long time, like over 15 years in the community that you see in the film in Queens, New York. So I live there, I've worked there. That is my community. And so for me, I bring my community organizing values to filmmaking, meaning I put a lot of people who don't have filmmaking experience into leadership positions in making this film, because what I wanted to create with this film was definitely like a beautiful cinematic experience for the audience and high production value. But I also wanted there to be sort of an authenticity that comes across from, you know, just being there and like having community folks involved. So for example, like, you know, a big theme in the film is about community. It's about her discovering a sense of community when she's so just driven for her piece of the pie. She finally realizes like she can only survive and thrive if she connects with other people, if she finds community. And you know, honestly, my community helped me make this film. My friend who was the production designer for this film, Karina Kaufman Gutierrez, she isn't a production designer. She's never done it before. And she's actually runs a street vendor organization in New York called the Street Vendor Project. And but she just has an artistic eye. And I, you know, and I've known her for a while and I knew she could do this. And she actually not only did production design, she did costume design, and she brought the vision forward for the hair and makeup as well. And it was wonderful because that's the world she knows. And so what she was able to do is collaborate with the street vendors, and like the street vendors donated everything. So everything you see in the film was donated by the vendors, the carts, everything. And then we also had street vendors involved in the creative process. So I made a documentary several years ago called Judith, Portrait of a Street Vendor. And that's where the idea for this film came from. And Judith, I was sharing scripts with her and she was giving me feedback. And we talked about the film. And then Sonia Perez, who's another street vendor, she was on set with us. And she worked with the actors and with me to ensure that, you know, like we were portraying that world authentically. And then Ellie Zavala, I connected her, the main actor who plays Nelly. I connected her with Judith, and so she went out with her and she sold tacos. And yeah, and like people opened up their homes and their businesses to us, and that's how we just shot in like actual like people's homes and people's businesses. Like everything you see is real. And so I couldn't have done that without my community behind me, and like people just trusted me to tell this story, right? I mean, you know, and to do it in collaboration and to do it with so much support it just means a lot. And I think we were able to accomplish what we did because of that.
I love hearing about the amount of authenticity that you've built into this film and trying to make it as authentic as possible. I mean, I think it's so cool that you're putting people in positions here that maybe they in filmmaking that maybe they didn't see themselves in filmmaking before, but they're so perfect for that uh, thing that you need to convey in this film. That's just really awesome, out of the box kind of thinking for filmmaking. And when we were talking before, I had asked you whether you preferred making documentaries or narratives, and maybe you can explain a little bit more about that. But I really loved what you had said when it came to hybrid. Tell me again about your relationship between narrative film and documentary film.
Yeah, I mean, right now, like I do have a little bit of a documentary background. And right now I'm just really into narrative because it feels like I have a little bit of freedom that I don't with documentary. Because documentary, the way I shot it, it was very much like reality, capturing reality. And I haven't really done experimental stuff before. So finding narrative has been great because it's like gives you a lot of freedom. But I still love documentary. And so what I've done is integrated like a lot of the stylistic elements of documentary into this film. And for me, I approach this film as sort of like a hybrid, narrative documentary approach. So for example, I gave you this example earlier. We had and it the way we shot this film, it allows for flexibility. That documentary sort of framework allows for flexibility and spontaneity that I think scripted, very by the book narrative doesn't. So for example, the scene where Nelly is selling from her new cart, it's like a peak moment for her. She's super happy. It's a moment of success for her. And the way I wrote it in the script was like people from the plaza were just, crowded around her wanting to buy her tacos from her new cart. And what the problem was is like we didn't have background actors for that part of the shoot, and we just had so much going on. And so I don't remember who it was. It was either one of my producers or my first AD said, hey, because we actually, those are real tacos she was selling. So street vendors actually made the food that Nelly sells in the film. Mm-hmm. So somebody said, why don't we just sell these taco plates for like $1 instead of the regular price? And we can get a crowd to form. And that's exactly what happened. So when we were selling in the plaza, Ellie, to her credit, was great at improvisation, and she just started selling as if she was a vendor. And I'm sure the work she did with Judith helped. Mm-hmm. And she was able to, create that dynamic, and people really thought this was an actual vendor selling tacos, and she was for $1 a plate, and people just crowded around, and we didn't have background actors. So all those people you see in that scene are actual people from Corona Plaza in Queens. So that's an example of how like we were able to be flexible because we took that documentary storytelling approach with this narrative and captured like an authenticity again that I think documentary allows for, as well. And so that's an example of how we sort of mix the two.
Yeah, it's so resourceful to come up with that idea and then for it to work so well, because I did not expect that to be like just random people coming up. I thought, this was all planned. This is all a part of what they're supposed to be doing.
Cool.
I honestly did. Yeah.
Okay.
And again, the level of authenticity that exists in this film is it's so organic. It's wonderful. It really is.
Great, because as you're talking, I'm realizing maybe people don't know the difference. They can't tell the difference between what was planned and what wasn't. And that's beautiful to me because it really is a mix. It is a mix of both. That's what we did.
And it's so cool. It works so well and so seamlessly in this film. And of course, a lot of that has to do with the performance of Ellie. And I didn't ask you about this before, but I am curious, how did you get Ellie involved in this project?
Yeah, I mean, I just worked with a casting director, Emily, oh gosh, I don't remember her last name. I have to look it up, but she was fantastic, based in New York, out of Susan Shoemaker's office. And she just knew what I was going for, and we called in a bunch of folks, and that's how I found Ellie and Idalia, who plays the rival vendor, and Jose Phoebus, who plays the father. And actually Jaden the boy and Vanessa Ortiz, who plays his mom, we found all through a casting director. So Ellie was just, as soon as I saw her, I could tell she got it. And in the second round, it was like we just really worked well together as director and actor. And so it was just perfect. I knew I had a, when directors have those gut feelings, it's like you go with it. And I had a gut feeling about her, and she was perfect. And she really embraced the character, and I love how deep she gets into the character work. And I gave her my perspective as a writer, what I was thinking when I wrote this. And then, we would have discussions even about clothes or the types of boots that the character's wearing. Like, would she wear these or would she wear these? Like, even down to the cross or like her jewelry, what kind of character is she? And so we would have a lot of those discussions, which I love, because this is a character driven drama. And so, yeah, that's how I found her. And then I also have some non-actors in the film.
That's just what you do here. You just mix the planned with the unplanned, or the conventional with the unconventional. It's great.
Yeah. So, like, for example, the guy who plays Juan, who is the guy who sells Nelly the cart, is Eduardo, and that bike shop is just a few blocks from my house in Queens.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I was talking to the owners about shooting there, and they also, the owners of the bike shop also own the house that you see where Nelly puts her carts and stuff on the outside. And so I got to be friends with them, and Eduardo works for them, and the shop you see, like that area you see, is his working shop. Like, that's where he tends to customers, that's where he repairs bikes.
That's so cool.
He was like, I actually auditioned a lot of people for that role, but nobody felt right to me. And I was like, dude, Eduardo is like exactly what I had in mind. Like, and he's so New York, like he's just so like, I don't care, like, do what you want to do, And so he was perfect, and I thought he was great. And again, lends such a like sense of reality to the film, because that's also where he works every day. So he was very natural in that environment. And so, yeah, I mean, we just sort of, and then some of the street vendors were also background actors. And so, yeah, we just mixed it up.
That's so cool. It feels like your gut feelings on filmmaking seem to be working in your favor very well so far. Everything just seems to come together. And like I identified, you can mix the conventional and unconventional in such a seamless way, because it is hard to tell the difference. And that's exactly how that should be, right? It just feels like a very authentically made film. I mean, I don't think I can express any more than I already have, but just to get it on the record, I love how many layers there are to this film. I had mentioned on our last conversation, it's not a big focal point in the movie, but there is this additional component of like, oh yes, there's also, on top of making ends meet, on top of the conflicts that happen between vendors, there's also this component of law enforcement, and how there's sirens that happen in one scene, and everyone has to like run and and be afraid of that, and that's a whole nother level to their story. It's not a focal point in this story, but it definitely comes up as something that still has to be factored into their daily life. So yes, just so many layers to this, and it was such a great experience for me, who I haven't been to New York, and I don't have a very extensive experience with street vending. So I left this movie feeling a lot more informed, a lot more aware, and I think that people who see this will also feel the same way if they're not familiar with that world, or if they're not aware of that life that people are trying to make it out of, or to trying to build a life around, right? So
yeah, no, I really appreciate you saying that, because definitely my writing style is one of, I want to show the various aspects, the layered aspects of a daily life, right? That's like what I love to do, because for certain people in our society, depending on your class or your race or your immigration status or your gender, it's like there's so many layers, and every day, you know, different aspects of our lives sort of interact with those different identities in different ways. And I didn't want to make like, you know, immigration or law enforcement the central aspect of these stories, because the central aspect is the daily life. Like that's enough for me to tell somebody's story. It's like there are such extraordinary circumstances in people's everyday lives that we don't realize, even in our own. And I think that's what I'm very interested in capturing. And also not to just focus on sort of the aspects of like, you know, where we're victims, because we also have agency in our lives, and we also have universal stories. Like our human experience is the same as everybody else's, and that was very important to me to tell. And you know, in terms of taking one of the other goals I had was to bring people in a world they wouldn't otherwise have the chance to experience. And I think I was telling you this earlier, that like if you live in a city, likely in the US, you've encountered, especially a big city like New York or LA, you have interacted with a street vendor, likely. And it's just that sort of transaction, like you had talked about earlier with me, like just you just do a transaction and then that's it. But like there's so much that goes on behind the scenes to get that one thing to you, you know, and to see that and to understand how people live in that life is, I think sometimes we don't think about who we're interacting with. And so I really like, what I like to do is be very specific about people's circumstances, but then tell a very universal story. So hers is a very emotional journey. It's a very I would say like a human condition story, you know, because it is about, you know, we all feel isolation, we all feel loneliness. And, you know, the theme here is really about community and how do you find your humanity in a world that can be very dog eat dog. And so that's something I think a lot of us can relate to. And also taking that leap of faith like she does, like she has to invest in something, and it's scary, right, when we put ourselves out there or we invest in something and then it's taken away from us. Like that's devastating. And so I wanted to show both the specificity so people could connect with people they wouldn't otherwise have the chance to meet or go into their world, but also connect with them through their sort of human journey. So trying to do both, I think. And that I think also bridges understanding and hopefully makes people understand that like we really are all the same.
Absolutely. And yeah, I'm excited for this film to continue going out to people and for more people to be able to see it, because I do think it's a really, really great story to experience. And I think you did such a great job on it. And I want to congratulate you again on the success that it's had so far. And yeah, I'm just wishing even more success with it in the future as far, and also with your career. I know we talked a little bit earlier about what you have kind of in the works or planning. I don't know if you want to explain a little bit about what you have in mind for upcoming projects you'd like to do.
Sure, I'd love to. So I'm working on a short. The next film is a short, and then I have 2 features in the works as well. So the short is about 2 Bangladeshi immigrants who are friends in the livery cab industry in New York, and it has some of the same themes as El Carrito about sort of finding your humanity in a world that can be very harsh or dehumanizing, and then also a challenge to the American dream, right? Like it's often our stories, the immigrant stories are is an American dream narrative. And I kind of wanted to present something else. Like, you know, in this story, in El Carrito, and in my next film, it's about like connection, human connection and community. And if you don't have that, you know, oftentimes it's very hard to achieve the American dream for people like us. And if you're from a particular class background. So that's my next project. And then I'm hopefully going to turn that into a feature. So I'll start it as a short and then turn it into feature. And then I have a feature script I've written that I eventually want to direct about a Pakistani man who is who becomes an FBI informant and is forced to turn in his best friend's son. So that's something like that I'm really looking forward to directing in the future. I have the first draft. I need to still work on it, but you know, I have a lot of I'm so excited for the future projects.
I'm excited for you for those future projects. I'm very much looking forward to what you do next. But
Thank
as for
you.
now, El Carrito is a really great short film, and I'm recommending that people see it, experience it if you're at South by Southwest or if you're virtual. Yeah, it's a very well done film, and again, congratulations on the success with that film.
Thank you, Thomas. Thanks for
Of
having me
course,
here.
you're very welcome. For those listening, Zahida Pirani is the writer and director of the short film El Carrito, which is screening at South by Southwest, and yeah, I strongly recommend that you watch it. And but until the next time we hop on another interview, everyone out there, keep it for real.